Alright, and the teams have entered champion select, so we'll move over to that now.
So Ninjas in Suits is going to be on the blue side today, and Team Zeref is going to be on purple side for the first match of the day. And it is a best of 3, so we'll see how it goes. And first band coming out is Zed from Team Ninjas in Suits. Pretty common band there, nothing too exciting. It's pretty standard run-of-the-mill. A lot of people don't want to deal with Zed and how big he can get late game and split pushing and all that. So.
Also, if you remember back to the game that we streamed earlier, Zed completely won it for one of the teams. I can't quite recall which match it was, but it was one of our earlier matches that we streamed.
And Team Zeref comes out and bans Thresh. Obviously, them death sentence and plays. Thresh is a really powerful support right now that can make a lot of big game-changing plays, so nothing too surprising there. And then Team Ninjas in Suits banned out Zach there, which isn't really all that surprising either. His initiation is one of the strongest junglers in the game right now.
Vayne coming out as the next ban for Team Zeref. Vayne's been an extremely strong AD carry recently with her ridiculous late game and early trading potential and her ability to duel one-on-one. She's been growing as a ban, or an extremely popular ban recently, and it's not particularly surprising to see it in this match. The last ban coming up for Ninjas in Suits is Caston. Caston's a really powerful anti-caster in mid lane. He's been also being banned frequently, so far we've seen 5 pretty standard bans. It doesn't look like the teams have gone in and researched that opponents. At least if they did, they didn't see any champions that they particularly needed to ban out against a specific team that aren't normal bans.
Yeah, these are pretty much just solo queue bans. A lot of the time it's just like what people consider the OPs right now and champions they just don't want to deal with in the game, so nothing too exciting. Jarvan being the last ban coming out from Team Zeref there. Once again, another strong jungler, nothing too surprising there with that ban, so we'll see how that goes. And Team Ninjas in Suits does have the first pick of this game, so we'll see what they decide is their ultimate priority for the match going underway here.
Ninjas in Suits appear to be picking up. Okay, maybe they're not grabbing them in. With all of the standard solo queue bans, this leaves open a lot of opportunity for first pick to be able to secure a powerful champion for one of their players that one of their players is extremely confident on since there were no targeted bans. It looks like they'll be picking up a Mumu who's extremely powerful at this level. He enables for ridiculous AoE team comps, and his ultimate is one of the strongest ultimates in the game, hands down.
So Mumu becoming the jungler. You don't see Mumu getting jungled that too much at this stage in the game, so not a huge surprise there. Lee Sin coming out on the other side. Lee Sin is more of a 1v1 jungler, so you can see a lot of counter jungling coming up from Team Zeref to counter that Mumu out a little bit. And Ezreal being picked up as the AD carry as well. Ezreal is obviously probably one of the top 2, if not the #1 picks for AD carry in the game. Really common, gets picked up all the time. So nothing too surprising there. It gives them a lot of kiting potential and a lot more map control. Same thing with Lee Sin. They have a very mobile team right now on the side of Team Zeref. Looks like Ninjas in Suits is showing a Kog'Maw. It'll be interesting to see if they pick that up. Not too many teams have been running Kog'Maw very lately. We'll see how that works out for them. Graves would be a much more logical choice. Or even Tristana for their team fight prowess late game if they're going to roll on that composition with the Mumu as well. So we'll see how that goes for them.
It looks like they're seeing Blitzcrank now is still being available. I'm not sure how I feel about that Blitzcrank against the Ezreal. Like, with the champions that they currently have selected, Blitzcrank might not be the ideal pick. However, he is seen as extremely powerhouse champion. And if they're basing their champion decisions off of what you normally see in solo queue, Blitzcrank becomes a very high priority pick.
Tristana Blitz lane isn't too bad. Ezreal Lulu's got definitely a lot more poke, and they're going to be able to poke him out pretty hard though if they decide that Team Zeref wants to lock in the Lulu here, and they do. So it's going to be Ezreal and Lulu versus Blitz and Tristana. Poppy being shown by the side of Team Zeref, they probably won't pick that one up. I'd be very surprised if they did. So we'll see what they really decide to pick here in a second. It looks like Team Ninjas in Suits is definitely going for more of a team fight composition, while Team Zeref is kind of doing a little bit more mobility and a little bit more map control, especially if they decide to pick up that Alistair. And with Ari as well, it's the same thing. They definitely have a lot of mobility around the map, and they definitely are going for map control and quick skirmishes, not necessarily the all-in team fights that Ninjas in Suits is going to be looking for.
So I'd be interested to see if Ninjas in Suits, as the last 2 picks, pick up more AoE to complement the Amumu that they have to initiate giant team fights in the mid game. Usually see Amumu in Arranged 5's games becoming a key part of AoE team comps, but so far with Tristan and Blitz, they haven't fully optimized for that, and if they're going to lock in that Nidalee, that's more of a poke champion and a lot less AoE damage. So I'll be interested to see what they decide to do with this.
So they're picking up a Nidalee right now, it looks like, maybe for the mid lane Nid, and then a Shen as well. The Shen's definitely going to help with their map awareness a little bit. They're probably going to have Shen split push, and they would have the 4 people push mid and try to get a pick. Amumu, Annie, if they decided to lock in the Annie there with the Tristan and the Blitzcrank, they would just have to wait for a Blitzcrank grab, and then Annie could pretty much lock in and secure that kill if they wanted to 4v5 just push and group together like that. So they actually do have a pretty good strategy coming out from them. It really does depend, though, on how early they want to get this going. Annie's really an early to mid-game champion, but Tristana definitely is more late. So we'll see how well that works out for them if they try to push their aggression early. While on the side of Team Zeref, it looks like they're going to pick up a Renekton maybe. And that would definitely give them a huge buff for their team fighting capabilities as well, especially with Ari and Lee Sin able to dash around and the Lulu's Wild Growth coming out. Renekton would definitely be able to get into that back line pretty easily onto Tristana and Annie probably. So we'll see how well it works out for them.
We see a lot of area effect crowd control coming out from Ninjas in Suits if Team Zeref gets very clustered. If Amumu lands a Bandage Toss and ults when they're all very close to each other, Amumu's ultimate's going to be followed up by Annie's ultimate and Shen's taunt. That'll be a lot of crowd control coming down on the entire Team Zeref if they're grouped together. It looks like Renekton was locked in, so we'll be seeing him diving in, trying to get on top of Tristana, using probably Lulu's Wild Growth to help him stick to her.
Yeah, definitely. If you got to look at the team comps here, it really depends on like how well they do early on. A good matchup that we could be watching this game is how the junglers do. Amumu on the one side and Lee Sin on the other. Amumu and Lee Sin both have fairly fast clear times, but Lee Sin can definitely solo Amumu 1v1 in the jungle early on at the early couple levels. So we'll see if Lee Sin uses that to his advantage and tries to play a little bit more aggressive early on and make plays. While the other side of Ninjas in Suits definitely wants to get to their level 6 and then their team fighting capabilities. When Amumu hits level 6 and Annie as well as Shen, they're going to have a lot more pressure on the map and a lot more control.
Yeah, I feel like Ninjas in Suits has a much stronger end game with Tristana, who becomes an incredibly powerful AD carry late game, and their area effect team fighting capability, as well as the ability to pick someone off with Blitzcrank almost immediately. I feel like if the game reaches the 40-45 minute mark and they're not horribly far behind or the game's not over, Ninjas in Suits will probably have this in the bag.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. It really depends on how Team Zeref does during the mid game though, because you have that Ari. Ari's got a ton of mobility. They're really mobile, so if they can get around the map and they can make plays and they can pick and do a lot of successful ganks, they're probably going to be sitting pretty well. Because I wouldn't be surprised if Ari started to roam as soon as she hit 6. With an Ari roam and Lee Sin roam, if they roamed up top a lot, it would probably be the most successful for them because they could get Renekton fed a little bit and try to take out that. If they roam to another lane, though, it's going to turn into just about an even fight because Shen's going to be able to stand united in there or teleport in there. So it'll be interesting to see how they take that into account, knowing that Shen's going to have that level 6 and is going to be able to make plays around the map. But I really wouldn't be surprised to see Team Zeref definitely using their high mobility to roam around and try to make a lot of ganks happen early on.
Yeah, you definitely have a point about Team Zeref's mobility. Between Ezreal's E to blink around, Lee Sin with his Q and W, who moves around a lot. Lulu has her speed buff, Ari has her dashes on her ultimate, and Renekton has his double dash. They really do have a lot of dashes and gap closers that will help them move around fights and at small areas of the map very effectively.
Yeah, and even with Ninjas in Suits team fighting capabilities and their team comp, unless it really depends on who gets initiated on first a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if the Amumu tries to be the aggressor and go in a little bit. But it's going to be really easy for Team Zeref to get into Ninjas in Suits backline with that Ari, with that Renekton, with that Lee Sin. And then Ezreal and Lulu can just kite away on the Shen while they try to get that out. It's going to depend a little bit on Forever's on Annie too. If Annie can get a good Tibbers ultimate with the stun locked in there, they might be able to kill the squishies. But I really feel like Asian Bliss on Ari and Archidize on Renekton is going to be able to get easily into the backline to get onto Annie and to get onto Tristana. When Blitzcrank can pill, but he won't be able to peel both of them at the same time, and especially if Lee Sin is added into that as well. It'll be interesting to see if Lee Sin decides to be more an aggressor or if Lee Sin's going to peel back a little bit to help out the Ezreal.
Yeah, Blitzcrank really isn't that strong of a peeling support. He's great at starting fights in your favor, but if a fight starts without it being on Blitzcrank's hook, he has a really tough time peeling for his AD carry or his AP carry. All he has is his knockup, which will be down at about 5-second cooldown, and his ultimate, which is only a half-second silence, so he doesn't bring much crowd control to the table as far as getting a champion like Renekton off of Tristana or Annie.
It's going to be really interesting to see. We're definitely going to have to watch Forever's on Annie. If Annie can get the good stun off, it's going to really change the team fight. Otherwise, I don't see a whole lot of kill potential coming out from the side of Team Ninjas in Suits early on. They really do not have a ton of damage besides the Annie and the Tristana. Shen doesn't have a ton of damage early in the game. He's really more of a tank to be able to absorb it, and that's kind of the same way with the Mumu. The Mumu's going to turn into this tanky body that probably won't have a ton of damage coming out early on. So it really depends on how well they're able to stack up that CC and how well they're able to get picks with Blitzcrank and how well they're going to be able to push with that split pushing prowess from Shen and use the Stand United to really make a difference in the game. Getting into the load screen here, the number one thing we always have to check when we get in the load screen is the skin battle. Let's see who won the skin battles, and it looks like Ninjas in Suits won that one pretty hands down with the good 4 to 1 ratio there. So this game's already been decided, and we might as well stop casting now.
So one key thing to note is that Shen, well, all the summoner spells are pretty normal, except Shen's running Teleport versus Renekton's Ignite. So that means that we should expect to see Shen in the bottom lane a lot with both his ultimate and his teleport. He'll be able to move down to the bottom lane, help out with any team fights that break out down there, and still make it back to top lane in time to prevent Renekton from split pushing too much.
Yeah, that's definitely what we're going to be seeing. There probably is Shen's going to be using that Stand United to join in the fight. They're going to win the fight really quickly, hopefully, and then he's going to teleport right back up to the top lane. But at the same time, if RD's on Renekton knows how to push at his advantage, he's going to be able to deny Shen very well in that top lane because he has that Ignite advantage on him and is going to be able to be quite a bully in lane. So we'll have to see if Amumu spends a little bit of time up top to help lower that advantage a little bit, but Renekton's definitely going to be able to push around Cameron on Shen a little bit due to his Ignite and just the overall damage that Renekton's going to be able to put out.
So I'll be interested to see what the teams decide to do at level 1. Ninjas in Suits have Blitzcrank, which is a very strong motivator for invading, and Team Zeref sees the Amumu on the other team, which is another key to invade, because a lot of teams really like to invade Amumus, because him missing out on his initial blue buff really sets him far behind. And so it'll be interesting to see both teams have a reason to invade, and we'll have to see what they decide to do with that.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how they get into this game here, especially with Annie being able to, charge up her stun and being able to throw that out. So we'll see how that works.
Looks like Ari had some trouble connecting into the game, and that we'll be waiting on her to reconnect.
But yeah, we can talk about that level 1 invade a little bit more if there's a potential for it. So you definitely have to consider Annie is able to charge up her stun, and then they have the Blitzcrank, and they can also pull out a Shen taunt if they want to go on with the Tristana. Amumu probably won't want to get Bandage Toss at level 1 because it'll really cripple his jungling capabilities. But with that, the Shen's taunt, if he decides to get it, and he's stunned and Blitzcrank's grab, it should be a pretty locked up kill. But then you have to look at the other side to see what they have. They have Ezreal, who can use his Mystic Shot to check all the bushes. They have Lulu as well. They can use that Glitter Dance to check the bushes out. Ari could get Charm at level 1 and use that Charm to be able to come out. Renekton can get his stun at level 1 as well. So there could be a few. There's enough of a counter engage if someone walks into the wrong bush and gets checked up on. And they definitely, on the side of Team Zeref, has enough damage to be able to put the first blood kill in the bank.
Alright, and it looks like the game is now back underway.
Looking at the buys across the board, pretty standard buys, nothing too terribly exciting. It's worth noting that Lee Sin got a Doran's Blade instead of the machete for the jungle. It's pretty common. See a lot of Koreans doing that now to get the Doran's Blade on a champion that's AD, like an Aatrox or a Lee Sin in the jungle. Extra lifesteal, it allows them to gank a little bit earlier. It gives them that extra health and do extra damage early on. Especially on a champ like Lee Sin, where, you know, Spirit of the Ancient Golem isn't really necessary. It's not necessarily worth it to build into the machete. There's other options that he can go into, like he can rush an early side stone for map presence or map control. So it'll be interesting to see how that works.
Alright, so despite what we said about Amumu and Blitzcrank, it looks like both teams will be starting the game relatively defensively, with 5 members of Team Zeref guarding Lee Sin's blue, and Team Ninjas in suits spread throughout the jungle, making sure that Team Zeref isn't up to anything sneaky.
Fail ward coming out there from Valzerus X on Lulu. Just going to point that out just to make him feel bad a little bit. He was trying to ward over that wall there, but he didn't put the ward in deep enough into the terrain, and then he missed out on that bush.
And it looks like that was a full 3-minute ward, not just his Explorer ward, so that was too bad.
So another thing that's worth noting here is Silver Eagle on Blitzcrank just bought wards, while on the side of Team Zeref, Valzerus X on Lulu bought a Fairy Charm, so Blitzcrank's going to be able to put a lot more wards on the map, but he did not use them anywhere, and he's holding on to all of them for the bottom lane here.
So this means that they'll have a pretty solid side advantage in lane, and he'll be able to control the bushes and stop Lulu from being able to pink out the bush that he's in, as it looks like that he started with 2 pinks, so he'll be able to win the vision fight for any bush that he wants.
That's definitely what he's going to be trying to do, is you know, use that pink ward to deny the vision from them so they can potentially get a grab in on Ezreal before he realizes it. Lane matchups across, we have in the bottom lane, Ezreal and Lulu versus Tristana and Blitzcrank. Top lane, Shen versus Renekton. That's going to be kind of a farm fest a little bit on. I wouldn't be surprised to see Renekton get really aggressive really quick. And in the mid lane, we have Annie versus Ari. A little bit of harass going out. Looks like we have the Lee Sin, though, coming in to engage on the Amumu, like I said, in the jungle.
He lands the Q and with a flash takes the first kill. And now he will be free to take Amumu's red buff, and this will set Amumu really far behind in his jungle.
That's exactly what I was talking about earlier in the game. Amumu definitely is a strong jungler with pretty decent clear time, but that really depends on late game and the team fights and how well he does. While Lee Sin, on the other hand, is a strong jungler as well, but he can go really aggressive in the other jungle and pull off those 1v1s because he's a really good 1v1 champion early on. A lot of damage coming out. Shen taking quite a bit of damage in the top lane from Renekton. Nothing too surprising there. Renekton is winning quite handily in CS right now with 16-4. We have a grab coming out in the bottom lane though from Blitzcrank onto Lulu. Valzerus X is forced to flash away on that. So flash burned in the bottom lane for right now.
And yeah, we see the substantial CS lead on Renekton already against Shen in lane. 9 CS in the first 3 minutes is very noticeable. And we see that despite being killed in the jungle, Amumu is keeping up with CS Lee Sin, who hasn't farmed very much.
Even though he's keeping up with CS and Lee Sin, he's still really far behind. Lee Sin picked up another Doran's Blade. He's going for that really early damage, really early aggression. Nothing too surprising there. Mumu's behind a little bit as well in experience. The kill for Lee Sin and obviously the red buff. He's a full level behind in experience right now, so we'll see how that goes for him.
Right now, Mumu's being very brave and counter-jungling Lee Sin's wolves while he is behind. It's very risky to go into the enemy's jungle when you're behind in the jungle and you've already been killed once. So I'm curious as to whether or not just picking up those wolves is really worth the risk. Now Ari comes in onto Annie, lands the charm and then her full combo. Lee Sin lands the blind Q and is able to follow up for the kill. Now they're onto Amumu.
Onto Amumu here. It looks like Ari's going to be able to probably pick this one up as Amumu does not have flash. And there's a double kill on Lee Sin, and now he's up 3-0 and is quite ahead of Amumu in the lane. Amumu kind of hesitated a little bit there. Tickle Me Pickle. Wasn't really sure if he wanted to go in to help that, and then decided to go in after Annie was already dead. So kind of a problem coming out from him there. And gold lead is already up to about 2K here at 5 minutes.
And now we see both Lee Sin and Ari moving down towards bot lane. Ari isn't level 6 yet, so that'll mitigate a lot of her damage when she comes in for this gank, but it'll still be a 2 versus 4. It looks like Blitzcrank's ward does spot them out, and they're making a run for it. With Tristana's jump, I wouldn't be surprised if we see her managing to escape, as long as Ahri doesn't land her charm here. And she doesn't even throw it out. Ahri was too low on mana.
So we can totally see how well Team Zeref is doing right now. They're really able to get around the map. Lee Sin went for that early aggression Doran's Blade, and is really pushing that to an advantage. Really able to get around. We see Tickle Me Pickle going into steal the race out really quick. It's not too bad if you can get out of there in time. I'm really surprised that there's no deep wards coming out though in the mid lane, up in that Wraith area by the side of Team Ninjas and Suits.
Renekton has Shen very low at his tower, and it looks like he might be considering diving once he hits level 6. We see a Mumu starting to swim towards the top lane to back up Shen in response to that. Renekton doesn't have any wards in the top lane, so Mumu might be able to pull this gank off rather successfully.
Level 3 to level 6 though, definitely not worth it. He can go in now, but you gotta remember Renekton's holding on to that ultimate now.
And he
He's
goes
gonna pop
in.
that here in a second, and there he goes.
Mumu manages to hit
coming
level
up
4. Lee Sin's showing up, and Renekton goes back in onto Shen, kills Shen. Lee Sin shows up, and now they're chasing down Mumu. Double kill for Renekton.
In the bottom lane we have some action as well. Tristana's able to jump in on there and to land a kill on Valorous X, who had previously used his flash to escape a blitz grab.
Blitz goes in and tries to knock up Ezreal to help secure a second kill, but gets blocked by the minions who are in his way.
So it's important to touch up on a few things here, CS-wise. Let's look at the top lane really quick. It's 50 to 25. 52 to 25. Renekton has got a huge lead, double Shen CS right now in the top lane, and he's also got 2 kills to go along with it. So, as well as with that Ignite, that's a huge advantage that's coming out for the side of Team Zeref. Oh, in the mid lane we have Lee Sin going in onto Annie there.
Lee Sin back. Annie drops Tibbers and lowers both of her opponents to half health, but isn't able to kill either one of them, and goes down quickly.
Game's turning pretty one-sided at this point. Team Zeref is definitely pushing their advantages quite around quite a bit, seeing how well they're able to, you know, punish them out a little bit. It's good that Tristana's doing well in the bottom lane with Blitzcrank versus the Lulu and the Ezreal. Getting Tristana fed is definitely a huge part to this game, and I really want to see Team Ninjas and Suits really know where their advantage is right now, and they know it's in the bottom lane. I want to see Sen ulting down there. I want to see them trying to make plays down there because they really want to get that Tristana fed.
So
CS-wise, across the board, we have Annie in the mid lane with 41 to Ahri with 45. In the bottom lane, we have Ezreal on 48 to Tristana's 55. Oh, we have a grab going out in the bottom lane as Blitzcrank's able to land another hook onto Lulu there. Taking a lot of damage, but she's able to get out. As Skillsy on Tristana just pokes her down along the way. We have Lee Sin, though, coming down. It looks like he's going to attempt to steal Mumu's red out here from him. And Mumu actually was at Lee Sin's red, so quite a bit of a counter there.
Ninjas and Suits did spot Lee Sin entering their jungle, though, so they know that he's in there, and they've warded their Tribush to stop him from coming around to gank. It doesn't look like they're going to go and try to stop him from taking the buff, though.
It's important to know where the deep wards are as well. Team Zeref actually has Ninjas and Suits blue warded, so they would have just spotted out a Mumu as he went to that Wraith camp there, or excuse me, Wolves camp. Looks like we have Ben Yells coming in the bottom lane on Lee Sin. He's going to land a Q onto Blitzcrank there, go in there. The ult's coming out. Shen's ultimate comes in as well. Hook lands on Ezreal. Wild Growth goes off. Lulu gets taunted and gets dropped. Good job by Shen to have that map awareness come down. It looks like a Mumu's rolling in the bottom lane as well. Shen's trying to chase the C. Looks like they back off.
Meanwhile, the Renekton does pick up the tower top, and Lee Sin goes back in to pick up the kill on Blitzcrank. This doesn't look like it's going to work out in favor of Ninjas and Suits unless they're able to somehow turn this around and get a dragon out of it. It doesn't look like they're going to have the power to do that, as Annie isn't quite coming down. Shen is able to teleport back top, though, and prevent Renekton from getting too much damage down on the secondary turret.
Renekton does have that team match finished right now, though, so he's going to be just absolutely wiping the floor with Shen in this top lane, and Shen's going to be having a really hard time here. It was a good ultimate. Stand United going down in the bottom lane, though, to help out on the Blitzcrank and the Tristana, and able for them to turn that around a little bit. They got a little overzealous though, and Lee Sin was able to pick himself up another kill as he finishes his Brutalizer as he backs right now. And Lee Sin is incredibly far ahead of Amumu, who only has his machete finished up right now.
And Lee Sin is level 8, and Amumu has not yet hit level 6. So that's a huge difference in power, as a lot of Amumu's power does come from his ultimate. It looks like Team Zeref is coming in on Amumu, who just bandage tosses to Renekton, who pops his ult, and then they walk out.
Taunt going in from Shen there, as then he gets immediately charmed by Ahri, as well as the Spirit Rush coming to follow it up. And he goes in there, was able to finish off Renekton with the good Tibbers coming out, and she backs off, so she doesn't have to deal with Ahri anymore. Good rotation there by Annie, but Shen was not paying a little bit too much attention, and he went in and decided to taunt, basically giving up a free kill there to Ahri coming in with that Spirit Rush of hers. Gold K lead is at 4K right now. It's steadily increasing for the side of Team Zeref right now. And we're only at 11 minutes into the game here, so Team Zeref is definitely abusing their advantage really hard right now, and they're definitely winning pretty outright. So it's important to note where the team comp fails a little bit. So in this case, we see a pretty big team fight comp coming out from Team Ninjas in Suits. But if they lose all of their lanes and they get too far behind, getting to that team fight's not going to really matter when you're dealing with a Fed Lee Sin or a Fed Ahri and a Fed Renekton. So good job by Team Zeref to be able to push their lane advantages out.
One thing that Team Zeref, or that Team Ninjas in Suits does have going from them, though, is that their bot lane is winning pretty handily. Ezreal doesn't have any kills or assists, whereas Tristana has one of each, and Tristana's also up almost 20 CS on Ezreal. So that advantage could help Tristana go carry the late game. And Amumu comes in the bottom lane now, trying to extend bleed even further. Bandage tosses onto Lulu, and it almost gives Tristana another kill, but Lulu's Wild Growth manages to just barely save her, and Ezreal's ultimate comes down, just barely not killing Tristana. And it looks like Shen's ultimate was up for that. He decided not to ult to help that fight. Probably a good decision. I thought he might have dropped it preemptively when Ezreal ulted. It looks like Team Zeref is now grouping around for Dragon.
We have to remember that Shen does have his teleport though, so if Ninjas in Suits want to react to this, they could get over there and it could be a 5v4, but it looks like Team Zeref is probably going to get that down too quick, and they do. So not really abusing their global advantage there with Shen in the top lane. They would have probably sacrificed an inner inhibitor for that, but if they would have won the fight and secured the dragon, it would have definitely been worth it in the end for Team Ninjas in Suits.
Shen's teleport was actually still down from when he teleported back to lane earlier. So he wasn't able to teleport to the ward that they had on Dragon and would have needed one of his teammates there to be able to join that fight.
Looks like Renekton's able to go in there and pick up Team Ninjas in Suits blue buff, and then just turns right back around onto Shen there. Looks like they're going to go in here.
Collapsing on him though, with Lee Sin coming around behind them. Team Zeref might be looking to turn this around once Ahri can get there. It looks like Ahri will just be pushing mid tower down instead, as Ninjas in Suits runs back through their jungle to try to get and defend mid.
And you can see where things are getting a little sloppy here from Team Ninjas in Suits. Another hook coming out in the bottom lane onto Valzyrex on Lulu. But you can see where things are getting a little bit sloppy here for Team Ninjas in Suits. They're trying to roam around, they're trying to make plays onto the Renekton and stuff, and they're losing turrets for it, and they're losing a lot of map pressure for it. If we're looking at the ward coverage of the game, it's pretty even. Both sides have wards in almost the exact same places across the map a little bit there. But then you have to look at the CS advantage. We're up to an 8k gold lead right now. The top lane is absolutely huge. Renekton's able to just sit there under the turret, take a couple shots, and put out way more damage onto the Shen than he's willing to take.
Yeah, just to show how far behind Shen is in lane right now, he taunts Renekton under his tier 2 tower, and Renekton, while taunted, does more damage to Shen than the tower does to Renekton. And Renekton's able to pop his rank 2 ultimate while Shen was only level 10, and just destroy Shen under his own tier 2 tower.
So the game's looking pretty grim right now for Team Ninjas in Suits. Renekton is absolutely huge. No one can sit up there right now and 1v1 him unless they decide to go a 2v1 with Tristana and Blitzcrank, and even that, they would have a large time. Looks like Annie's going in on the mid lane onto Ahri. She's able to get the ultimate off, dash in with Spirit Rush, and runs away. And he flashes away. We also have action going on in the bottom lane as Blitzcrank lands another hook on Bowser's Dex in the tower. Tristana is able to pick that up on Lulu as she gets grabbed again. Top lane in the meantime, Renekton dives in onto Amumu there. Tickle Me Pickle casts this Curse of the Sad Mummy that is able to get out. Looks like on the other side of the map, Ari is getting able to pick up the Annie kill there. Renekton in the meantime is trying to back inside the base. Shen goes in there and is able to pick up the kill on him. And we have action
diving bot tower now though. So much action happening everywhere. Shen manages to ultimate in on Tristana, saving her from the tower dive and forcing Team Zeref to back off. Shen trying to chase down now, trying to land a taunt onto Lee Sin, but Lee Sin manages to make it to the bush, and Shen gives up the chase.
So a lot of action going on across there, and a lot of overall, it went really well for Team Zeref. They were able to pick up kill on Annie. They traded it 1 for 1 pretty much. Those Renekton died in the top lane. Gotta look at the ultimates that were burned though for that. Shen did burn his Stand United, Amumu did burn his Curse of the Sad Mummy, so they get order to escape the Renekton in the top lane. Pretty much ults were used all across the map there. The turret was taken in the bottom lane though by Team Ninjas in Suit. They were able to take a turret to hopefully get themselves back in the game a little bit. It's a 6k gold lead though, so the gold lead is still pretty substantial right now at this point in the game, as Team Zeref pushes their advantage.
Renekton is now up 70 CS on Shen. He has double Shen CS. Ari's up around 30 on Annie. And those two solo lanes are incredibly far ahead. Right now, Ninjas in Suit's only real hope is to be able to protect Tristana while she's able to dish out major damage in the later game.
Tristana did just pick up her Infinity Edge, and this is really important to note. I really want to see what that Infinity Edge picked up. That's a huge spike right now for Tristana. I really want to see them try to make a play with Tristana grouping with the team. Tristana's going back bottom lane to push off Ezreal and Lulu again to pick up some more farm, but I really want to see them using that huge Infinity Edge advantage right now and try to make some plays with it. Good grab in the mid lane on Blitzcrank onto Renekton. Too bad he's unfortunately the tank, and they're going to turn that right around. So we got a Tibbers coming in as well as Amumu going with the advantage. They're able to turn that around on Renekton as Ari goes in with a Spirit Rush to pick off Amumu, and she's able to pick him up, and a double kill comes out for Ari. In the meantime, we have Ezreal and Lulu diving Tristana in the bottom lane, but Tristana has an IE and is incredibly huge right now.
Shen lands the taunt on Ari, and they're probably going to be able to pick her up now as she tries to run away. Lee Sin goes in with his W to try to shield her. Puts himself in
the
danger,
bottom lane, we have
Tristana
Tristana 2v1ing.
Man-moding them behind her tower. They got a little bit too brave on the relatively fed Tristana. And it looks like, as a whole, that worked out for Ninjas in Suits very well, and it brings them quite a bit back into the game. Now they're back down to being... They're only down 5k now, which is quite an improvement for them, as Dragon is about to respawn in about 50 seconds.
Yeah, we'll see. That's probably going to be the next team for a big team fight, as long as Ninjas in Suits has that time. That was really impressive in the bottom lane by Tristana, and really good news for Team Ninjas in Suits, as she was able to get 2 more additional kills, and it's now 4-0-1, and she's back in right now, and she's got about 1,000 in the bank. Not a whole lot. Should be able to pick up another item there.
So that just goes back to what you were talking about, how her finishing the Infinity Edge was a huge power spike for her. They towered over her and were not expecting her auto attacks to deal a quarter of Lulu's health each time that she crit. Tristana was able to blow through their HP way faster than they expected, and they weren't able to take the tower at all, and were just obliterated as they were trying to run away underneath the tower.
One thing I want to point out, though, is... it looks like we have a little bit of action as Lee Sin goes in on the Blitzcrank there. Q coming out. Amumu lands Bandage Toss as the taunt goes in. Ari comes in, though, from the other side, and looks like they're going to back out, but Annie comes around the other side. Curse of Sad Mummy's used, but that's on Ari, who has Spirit Rush, and is probably going to be able to just dash right away on that. In the meanwhile, we have Renekton coming around the backside, pops his ultimate, goes in right into the middle of the team using that AoE damage. Blitz comes out from Blitzcrank as they try to get it, and Renekton's health is dropping. Good job by Annie.
And Lulu are coming into from the mid lane, and Tristana jumps in to try to finish off Renekton.
Huge damage, just sadly ults him away, misjudging your damage there a little bit. But overall, 1 for 1, I'm going to say that was definitely in the favor of Ninjas in Suits. At this point in the game, when you're that far behind, to trade 1 for 1 to the other team is pretty much always worth it. It went really well. Annie was able to pick up that kill, and then Ninjas in Suits is slowly getting them back in the game a little bit here.
That was also Lee Sin's first death, so they got the bounty from a Lee Sin with 4 kills on him, whereas their 0-6 now, Amumu, was worth almost no gold to the enemy team.
Pings going out on Dragon by Team Zeref, though. Let's see if Team Ninjas in Suits reacts to that. I want to touch up again on that dive in the bottom lane, though, onto the Tristana as Bowser's X and Falfaroth on Ezreal try to take her. An important thing to note is through all this fight and everything going on, Lulu has held on to that exhaust of hers, and she has yet to use that exhaust. I'm a little surprised. Maybe it was down, it did not use it in the bottom lane fight, and Tristana was able to pick up 2 kills because they didn't go in with their full arsenal there. Another important thing to look at this game is the builds. On the side of Team Zeref here, they're going pretty much pure damage on all of their champions. Lee Sin is going pretty damagey with that Brutalizer, and maybe he'll start to build a little bit more health now. And Renekton in the top lane is also going for a lot of damage here, so they seem to be lacking a little bit of a tank. While on the side of a Team Ninjas in Suits, they have a Mumu building really tanky and Shen building really tanky, and then Tristana is more than willing and able to put up that damage. So these team fights are really going to come down to, can Tristana position herself, and can Tristana not get picked? If she doesn't get picked, then she is definitely in a great position right now.
An interesting choice by Ezreal, rushing a Trinity Force over any other damage item or lifesteal. What do you think of that?
It's actually, this is actually going to be the new OP Ezreal build that's coming out here. You're going to start seeing it a lot. The reason why they get this now is the changes to Phage. And Triforce was usually an item that used to be picked up all the time, but you have to think of the, now with the Phage, when you get a little bit of a proc there, it gives them a little bit of a movement speed boost. It's called the unique passive Spellblade. After using an ability, the next basic attack deals bonus damage, and that goes in with the Sheen. And then basic attacks grant 20 movement speed with passive Rage for 2 seconds on hit. Meanwhile, though, in the top lane, we have Renekton diving in on Shen there under the turret. Shen's able to last a little bit longer, but it looks like in the end he's able to pick up the kill. And it looks like we have Ninjas in Suits reacting to this, but in the meantime, Team Zeref is being wise and taking the dragon.
So 3 members of Ninjas in Suits trying to stop this dragon. They're a little late, though. And Andy comes around to try to finish off Renekton, who's able to take top tower before just suiciding, or maybe even recalling, as no one is trying to chase him down.
If he recalls out of there, I would be thoroughly impressed. No, he's going to have to suicide. He better hurry up, though. Yeah. There it is. So that was a good play by Team Zeref there. That just goes to show how big Renekton is at this point in the game, and that leaves that inhibitor uncovered in the top lane. In the meantime, though, the Ninjas in Suits got really split up. They weren't sure whether or not to go for Renekton. They weren't sure whether or not to go in for the fight on Dragon. And overall, they ended up just doing nothing, and nothing went out for that. A little bit of action going on the bottom lane as Lee Sin tries to go in on a Blitzcrank. Grab there comes out, so Lee Sin's not able to get his ultimate. Stand United coming in from Shen, though, and he's about to get in the fight. Good ult away by Lee Sin there, as Tristana jumps in and start putting out a little bit more damage there.
Tristana does have red buffs. Those auto attacks might give... No, it's not enough slow to stop them from escaping.
It comes down to that high mobility again. Ezreal is definitely very fast right now with that passive coming out there. The Rage passive coming out from that Triforce, giving him that bonus movement that allows him to escape and walk out of there without too much of a problem. Lulu's able to get out of there, as well as Lee Sin with his W as well. Safeguard being able to just get them right out of that fight there. And the gold lead is actually increased again. We're up to about 9k. As farming throughout the board, we got to look at the farm. Renekton's at 200 to Shen's 100. That's absolutely insane. And he's at 142 to Ari's 176. On the jungle, we have 68 on Amumu to 85 on Lee Sin, and the only person winning for Team Ninjas in Suits is Tristana with 177 to Ezreal's 160. As we have Tristana getting caught out in the mid lane here, she pops a barrier and she flashes away. Ari's coming on the backside though as she ults. Good ult away by Tristana there as the Ezreal ult comes in and Tristana barely gets out with any health. We have Renekton diving straight for Tristana though, and he's able to pick her up and turns his attention to Blitzcrank to go down as well. And now Shen is running away, is able to taunt over the wall there. Annie was not in that fight as she was backed, but Tristana's positioning definitely is going to cost them a Baron here. Team Zeref is wise to go over there and take that free Baron. They should have probably taken the inhibitor in top lane as well, and then backed off and they would have still been able to get the Baron out. But we'll see what Annie and Shen thinks they can do here as they're kind of poking around. Gets a little bit too close though, drives right in. They're actually all backing off
the Baron to go finish off Annie, who fails to flash over the wall.
Oh,
Tibbers manages to stun them up. Renekton's going to be able to dive in and kill her though once the cooldowns are out.
Coming in. There it is.
And then they go back to Baron and finish it up right now.
Now with Annie dead, I really want to see Team Zeref pull the next level play, just all run top lane. Let's see it. All of them just need to run top lane. Annie's dead for 25 seconds. They have Baron buff. That's a free top lane inhibitor. And they decide to back. You know, why not?
Bot lane is pushing it pretty far, as well as the top lane minions. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see them back off and spend their money.
It would have been a free inhibitor in my opinion. I mean, yeah, backing off isn't bad, but free inhibitor on top of the Baron, and then could have backed and bot, and then I'll just push mid or bottom. It would have been pretty easy to get that bottom turret for free. 13k gold lead now coming out for the side of Team Zeref as they are slowly mopping the floor with ninjas in suits. As you can see on that Ezreal, though, every time he pops out a Q, he gets that little bit of attack speed movement buff. And if you're going to pair Triforce with Frozen Gauntlet, it's kind of weird to think about because both of them, you obviously wouldn't get the Sheen passive anymore into that with the Spell Blade, but you still would get insane kiting potential with the slow and on top of the movement speed buff. It would be really hard, especially if you paired that with up some Furor boots right now. That's why that build is going to be really popular and really powerful here shortly. Gotta look back to the Tristana. Tristana had her IE finished a while ago, and since then she has not been able to finish up a whole lot. Has a Zeo coming out, but no big more items coming out. In the top lane, in the meantime, we have Renekton totally abusing Shen right now. Just kind of reminding him who's his boss as the ultimate's popped and he slowly chases down. In the meantime, Team Ninjas and Suits is slowly reacting to come around on the other side of him as Shen limps away. Blitzcrank's going to walk in here, though. Gotta be a little bit careful for Ninjas and Suits as Team Zeref would be smart just to push the mid lane right now and take a free turret while they're out of place, and that is exactly what they're doing. See Ninjas and Suits slowly reacting back the other way, as Renekton's probably just going to go chill back in the top lane again and abuse Shen a little bit more. So now it comes down to the trouble that Ninjas and Suits has. Renekton is too big, Shen cannot deal with him. Someone has to go over there to help him, otherwise they're going to lose this inhibitor for free. And that's what they're doing. Tristana and Annie are coming in now. Renekton better react pretty quick. See what happens here as he slices and dices away and gets right out off of that. Now Annie's slowly running back to the mid lane, not sure what she wants to do as Renekton's able to just slowly push his advantage again. They probably won't have enough damage even if Annie uses all of her abilities to kill him there. Renekton's just able to chill. And then Annie slowly backs off as we have a fight in mid. Good bandage toss and Curse the Sad Mummies. They try to dive into Mumu and Annie ultimate here. Meanwhile, Tristana's in the back line just slowly wasting everybody. She picks up the kill on Lee Sin, dives in on Ahri. But she's taking a lot of damage as Ahri puts it back onto her, kills him up. And it looks like they're going to turn to go over there, but the inhibitor did go down in the top lane as the Renekton was able to pick that up. So good job by the Tristana to pick up a couple kills there. Renekton's still pushing his advantage out here as he just slowly kind of, walks around the base and says, I own this place.
So it looks like Tristana has reached a point where she is strong enough to make up for the difference in power that Team Zeref has from their Ahri. However, Renekton is able to sit there top and constantly continue to take advantages. I'm not sure they're going to be able to deal with a team fight that has Renekton in it with him diving onto Tristana. But if they keep on trying to have Renekton split push, it looks like Ninjas and Suits will be able to win the team fights.
Looks like Renekton's coming up in the mid lane behind the Tristana here. She's a little oblivious. Pops his ultimate. Let's see if she jumps out. She does. She have the Buster Shot available to push him away. She does not have it up for another couple seconds. It will be coming up really soon, though, and she'll be able to blast him away from that. It's important that she does it after the stun, though. See how he stunned there and was able to get right back in on top of that? You need to do it at immediately after the stun if you can last long enough. Because if you do it right before the time that he's pushed away, the stun's going to go off at the same time, and that's why he was able to pick up on that kill there. So Renekton just totally showing why he's huge right now and just absolutely destroying everybody in this game. Another important thing to touch up on that last team fight, though, is Team Zeref decided to dive in the mid lane. You got to think about what they were diving. They were diving Amumu with the Curse of the Sad Mummy. They were diving Annie with Tibbers fully stacked up with the full stun coming out on top of that, as well as a Blitzcrank who's got enough grab to keep them in the turret. And Tristana in the back line just drew out some damage. It looks like they dive in the bottom lane on Shen, though, and he gets picked up right away.
Mumu forced to flash over the wall as Team Zeref moves into tower dive the spot lane, and Mumu is terribly out of position.
And this is just coming back to the huge gold lead coming out in this game. It's up to 13k. It's absolutely insane. Renekton's got 13,000 to his name over the game to Shen's 7, so about a 5k difference coming out there. And it's just absolutely showing in dominating fashion right now as he almost is more than double Shen CS. It'll be interesting to see Team Zeref needed to go in right away here, but they're going in. Amumu's looking for the ultimate after the turret went down. They waited a little bit too long. Tristana wasn't there, and they're just going to end up all getting picked off for that.
Renekton flashes in onto Tristana underneath their Nexus turrets. Tristana hops away back underneath the fountain, is able to heal up a little bit from the fountain while still attacking in the fight. It's down to just Tristana and Shen as they try to chase Team Zeref out of their base. Lee Sin goes back in and hunts Tristana back into his team, and Ari and Ezreal are able to pick up the kill on Tristana. This could be a good game as there's 45-second timer on Tristana, who's the only person on Ninja Suits that's really able to stand up to the members of Team Zeref.
Going on top of Shen there as Ari Spirit rushes around and Shen gives a free kill to, you know, deter his KDA a little bit. Grab coming out from Blitzcrank doesn't really do anything though, he's just got no one to back it up. GG's are called as Team Zeref picks up Game 1 against Ninjas in Suits in pretty demanding fashion, as the end game there turned out to be about 8K. So really good game coming out there from Team Zeref.